Good day, ladies and gentlemen. I'm glad to have you here on Financial Turmoil Explained. Today is Friday, the 19th of August, 2022. Thank you for tuning in. Let's get started. First thing I want to talk about is these nuclear power plants. You guys watch my show, you know, for a long time I've told you I do not like nuclear fission. And I do like nuclear fusion. I like nuclear fusion a lot. And we've just on the edge of being able to have nuclear fusion for the first time. But nuclear fission, we've got like over 400 nuclear fission reactors all over the earth. And they're a tremendous danger to mankind. And right now, there's probably the biggest one that's the biggest danger to mankind right now is located in Ukraine, and it's the biggest one of all. It's the biggest one out there of them. Bigger than Chernobyl. Bigger than Fukushima. This is a really, really big one. And it's surrounded, it's in the middle of a war zone right now. It's surrounded with Russian troops, and the Ukrainians are on one side and the Russians, and they're bombing in the place. If you can imagine that. If they somehow cut the power to that plant and the water cooling system doesn't work, the plant could explode. And, well, the explosion's not going to do a whole lot of damage. But the cloud that comes off of that is going to drift basically wherever it wants. And let's talk about that, and let's open up the charts right here and take a look at this. This is what will happen if Ukraine's Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant explodes. See, they're saying here that the explosion, they're not so worried about the explosion. It says, while an explosion is not impossible, experts say the greatest concern is the leak of radiation that could come as a result of the explosion. In other words, a cloud. Let's pull right down here and talk about this. Well, here's a map and a chart. It shows where the I'll just call it ZAP plant is located. It's down near Crimea. See, there's Crimea right there. And the ZAP plant's right there, just to the north of Crimea. Now, here's where Chernobyl was, up here just to the north of Kiev. And so it's to the south, but you can see it's a huge reactor system. There's 6 great, enormous, big reactors in there. Each one would be many times Chernobyl. I think I heard the estimate, they're saying that each one of these reactors would be 7 times Chernobyl. Okay, and they got 6 of them. So what's that, 6 times 7? My lands. Anyway, let's pull down here and see what they say. Given the IAEA's warnings, could the plant explode, and if so, what would happen? And they go on to talk about how it says, what we have here with the military involvement is very difficult. If multiple catastrophic factors come together, an explosion might be possible. It's difficult to say whether this will happen, according to them. But they were saying that reactors need to be constantly cooled by water passing through them. And if that water or steam is cut off or cut down, or cut off in some fashion, the reactor could lose cooling and the fuel will start to melt. And it will sort of create a high pressure, and then the thing can explode. You know, boom. Oh, there's a reactor. And I guess when it blows up, then it's a cloud. It's that cloud you got to watch out for. Where it drifts, and it could drift anywhere. I mean, there's a lot of big cities surrounding, even in Russia itself. If it's 7 times bigger than Chernobyl, maybe it could move 7 times further and still affect people in a way to make them sick with radiation poisoning. So this is a very desperate situation they got going on here. We're going to move into the markets now. We're not going to talk about nuclear radiation any longer. But suffice to say that during Chernobyl, they were able to get in there quick with radiation teams, quick and effectively, and these specialized teams were able to slow Chernobyl down and cover it with a big what they called a sarcophagus to seal the radiation in. But if this thing's 7 times bigger than Chernobyl and you're in a war zone, how do you get the emergency technicians in to build a sarcophagus around it, a concrete sarcophagus around it, when you've got a war going on and bombs are dropping? Just seems more likely to me that the situation would devolve into chaos when a war is going on, essentially. And then that poisoning radiation would continue the leak, unlike Chernobyl, which was sealed with a sarcophagus. That poisonous radiation would continue to spew up out of there and drift all over Europe and possibly drift over Russia and areas like that, including Ukraine. And they would have, maybe the exclusion zones that they might be immense by the time this is over. Land that can't be used to produce grain any longer, and so on. Tremendously bad situation could occur from this. Anyway, we're going to take a look at silver today. Silver's going straight down right now. It's down 50 cents, and it's dropping like a stone, the proverbial stone in water. So that ain't good. But you know what all this is about? In a nutshell? The Fed raising interest rates and the Fed doing quantitative tightening. And as long as they continue on with this process, everything is not going to turn upwards and be rosy, until they change direction. What they're going to cause is a credit event, I believe. Now, this is honestly what I believe. I believe that we're getting closer by the day, and they're going to continue until they trigger a credit event. I think they're going to continue pushing. The Fed's going to continue with their $95 billion a month sucking out of the system. The same money that they put in during quantitative easing, they're sucking out now. And they're raising interest rates. And they're gonna create a credit event. It could happen very suddenly. Then they're going to chicken out of all this once they create the event. And what is a credit event? Well, look back to 2008. You can find out what a credit event is. It's a contraction of the system. It's a drying up of liquidity, and suddenly you get bankruptcies that spread through the system. And the banks don't want to extend credit during a period like that. And it's desperate. And that's when the central banks come to the rescue, and they would have to come to the rescue again just like they did before. It's wash, rinse, repeat with this whole thing. We've seen it before. An awful lot of people get hurt, but they don't care because they don't care about you. Simple as that. Let's take a look at gold. Gold today, $17.53, down $5.60. Yeah, really, they don't care. They don't care if you get hurt. The small guy gets hurt. If all of your portfolio loses tremendous value or whatever, they're just going to pump up their big rich buddies on the other side of this, and they make all kinds of money. Because first off, they know when it's all going to happen anyway because they're the ones that trigger it. They're playing you guys. They're playing everybody out there that's not them. Because they have the control. And I mean, take a look at what they'll do is they know when the markets are going to fall, and they will sell their stocks just before the market falls because they're making the market fall. They're the market controllers. Talk about your fox in charge of the hen house. Bitcoin's fell a lot today. It's fell, it looks like it's fell over $100 billion to 1034. We're looking at 21,440 for Bitcoin and 1,690 for Ethereum. Dow Jones Industrial average right now, 236 points down at 33,762. And now we're going to take a look at crude oil, and it is up 3 cents at 90.53 today. Okay, let's take a look at the move index at 120.26. It's still below its moving average. Its moving average would be, well, you can just plot it. It draws a line right through there, right up to about there. So it's moving. It would have to be up, I don't know, 175, 180 to be up to that average of where it's going here. Where it should be. It's down below. Why it did this big drop here? It was keeping up with it all along, all the whole this year, until it took this big drop. And this big drop kind of coincides with some sort of backdoor deals the Fed's doing to prop up the system. And that's what brought the move index back down again. So the move index is showing us that they've been messing around in the credit markets, specifically with the debt market. You know, and we saw when they messed around with it, they brought the bond yields down on the long end of the yield curve. They fell. But now they're creeping back up, and what's happening? What do we see happening? Well, we see the Dow falling and plunging again. We see oil price, it's fell back some, and we see cryptocurrency and we see gold and silver prices falling. That's because right now they're whatever they were doing to prop the system up. When it went down, when the markets went down to 30,000, they started that. And they brought the markets back up to where they are now, 33,000 or higher. Now they've quit again. And the markets are starting to fall again. They have total control over these markets, the central bank. And this is just showing their control. And they don't always tell us what they're doing. They do it behind the scenes now. It used to be they'd tell us, hey, you know, we're going to do this and we're going to do that. No, there's no transparency any longer of what they're doing. And they have total control over these markets. So it's obvious to me that 30,000, they said, okay, we're not going to let these markets go below 30,000 on this particular go-round. Yeah, but what's their marker on the next go-round? On this go-round we're going into now. Because this is a controlled demolition. That's basically what they're doing right now, is controlled demolition of the financial system. And they don't care how many people they hurt, as long as the people that are on their side of the fence get rich, as filthy rich. So what they're creating is two classes of people here. They're creating the filthy rich, and they're creating the utter poor and destitute. And that's all you're going to have. No middle class. How is the middle class going to like that? I don't think they're going to like it. Anyway, let's move on to bonds and rates. See, the yields climbed today. 2.96 on the 10-year. It's up 8.5 basis points. And the 30-year is 3.2%, and it's up 7 basis points. Now we're going to take a look at the dollar index. Well, you can see it going up now. Now that they've went back, and the dollar index fell. Just a second here. Let me see if we can spot this. If we take a look at 3 months, maybe it might show it to us. Yeah, right here. Right here. The dollar index is 108. Right? And then what happened was they come in with this backdoor quantitative easing or whatever they were doing. And they brought the dollar index all the way down to 105.45. And then all the way down to 105.09. Almost 104. They brought the dollar index to. And this is where they stopped right here. Now see, you're going back up again. Shooting back up. And the markets are shooting down. You can see that they've, whatever they were doing, secretly behind the scenes to pump money into the system, I think they've stopped now again. And so now we're getting a stronger dollar. Gold and silver price starting to turn down. Crypto's starting to turn back down again. Everything turned back up when they were pumping money in there secretly. And now that they've stopped, everything's turning down. So what's their marker this time? That's what I want to know. What's their marker this time? Last time it was 30,000 Dow. Would it be lower or the same? Or are they just going to let it go back down to 30,000 and then prop it all back up again? Whatever. See, totally controlled markets. These guys who go out there right now and doing all this Fibonacci patterns and all this, you know, heads and shoulders and all this kind of stuff. This don't work in controlled markets because it's a decision that's made by the central banks that works in controlled markets, and you cannot predict that decision that they're going to make. So how can you do the old charting thing like they used to do, which used to work in markets that were run by in a normal way, weren't controlled, weren't not contrived markets? So, I mean, if you guys are out there listening to these guys that are all into the Fibonacci patterns and all into the heads and shoulders and all this kind of stuff, and all into market retracing and all this, and they show charts after charts, yeah, that all looks great. And that used to work. But now it's all controlled by what Federal Chairman Powell says. And so now you're much better off if you got a guy that's watching Chairman Powell like a hawk and seeing what he's going to do and trying to anticipate what they're going to do within the Fed. Because that's what's going to control which direction markets go. If I'm making any sense to you guys. Anyway, you guys have a great afternoon. And we'll catch you guys in the next show. Bye-bye.